Hey guys, thanks for watching. Today we're going to be going over the functions and how-tos for the ultrasound for EFR. I'll be going over how to do some of the exams, but the main reason for this video is to explain the actual taking of an image. Go over some of the terms used in doing an ultrasound and what it is that you're actually looking at when you're taking a scan. I know for a lot of us that seems to be one of the biggest problems, so hopefully with this video, I'll clear some of that up and you guys will be more comfortable taking these exams. And the whole reason for us doing this pilot study is to confirm the absence of blood flow and the absence of heart movement. They recently did a study in which they found out that 54% of all PEAs, pre-hospital and hospital, actually had viable hearts. They had organized rhythms and blood flow, but the hearts weren't strong enough to produce a mechanical pulse, so they were calling these people in the field, and they started using this pilot study and continuing to work these patients pre-hospital, and a lot of these patients were being discharged from the hospital. So it's a great program. It's actually working. I know we found a couple on the calls that I've ran before. So it's an invaluable tool. And also we're going to use these to determine death in the field. Remember to determine death in the field. The protocol states that you have to determine that there is an absence of an apical pulse. So you have to auscultate at the chest for 60 seconds and make sure that there's no pulse or no heart rhythm. And then, or you can use visualization with an ultrasound and the absence of heart movement with an ultrasound. And there's no time associated with that. It just states that it must be used to visualize the absence of heart movement. Also be going over saving your exams, then how to send off your exams to be reviewed later by the EMS chief. So the first thing we're going to do is go over basic functions like just how to turn the unit on, right? You're looking at the tablet and you're oriented in an up-down position. The first thing you do is turn the on button at the top right and press and hold it for some time, and it goes through its functions, warming up in the mornings. If it's been turned on already, it'll go directly to that screen, and you let it go through its warm-up stuff, right? Okay, so once the unit turns on, you'll get to this screen here. You're gonna swipe up and you're gonna see that there's a 10-digit keypad here. And the number for that is 3473. That'll take you to the main page where you're gonna see the apps pop up, and you're gonna look for the Lumify app. It's typically gonna be in the center of the screen. We did that on purpose so you don't have to go looking for them. And just go ahead and tap on that icon. It's going to go through its paces, warm up, and then it's going to take you to the actual scan page. And you'll notice that on that first scan page, there's 4 options to do scans. There's gallbladder, abdomen, lung, and OBGYN. Well, you'll notice that there's no cardiac icon. And the reason for that is when you turn on the app, you don't have the transducer connected to the tablet, it won't come up. Once you connect the transducer via the USB-C connection to the tablet, it'll take a few seconds for the cardiac icon to appear, and then it'll come up. Make sure it's highlighted in blue as you see here. Once it is highlighted in blue, go ahead and press the scan button on top in the blue part, and that'll take you to the scan page. Oftentimes, if you come to this page and you notice that the blue snowflake is yellow, press that until it turns blue, and then that'll give you a live scan. So before we get any further, let's go over some of the terms, right, and what this thing is. We call this a transducer, a probe, or a butterfly. The terms are all interchangeable. You'll notice that there's a gray line on the side here, and that gray line is your probe marker, and it'll show up on your screen as a dot, depending on which direction or which orientation you have your probe marker on. And also worth mentioning, the top part of the screen or the top part of the image represents the body part that is closest to the probe. Another thing you want to know is what the long axis and the short axis of the probe is. This is the short axis right here, and this is going to be your long axis here. And we need to know that what the short and long axis are because of our exams. One of our exams is called the Parasternal long axis exam, and we put this transducer along the long axis, or it's also known as the PLAX exam. So you have to make sure that the probe is in the correct orientation, or else you won't get the image you're looking for, or you get an image that it doesn't make any sense, right? So that's why you have to make sure that that probe marker is in its correct placement as well as a transducer. Here at EFR, we're going to be doing 2 different types of exams for now anyway. Eventually we'll reach the full potential of this thing and all the things that it's able to do and see, and it's really, really cool. The exams we're going to be doing are the PLAX exam, which I just talked about, and the Subxiphoid. I will tell you from experience that the Subxiphoid is the easiest of the exams to do because of the positioning of the probe marker and the orientation of the probe itself, right? It's just a lot easier. This is called a phased array probe. There's several different types of probes, like the curvilinear and the linear and several other ones. And each probe has its own specific function depending on what it is that you're looking to do with that probe or what it is that you're going to be scanning. For what we're going to be doing, the phased array probe is what suits our needs best. This is also called a cardiac probe, and its strongest point is in taking images of the heart. Okay, so let's get into some definitions. If something is able to give off an image, an ultrasound image, we call that as being echogenic, or it has echogenicity. When sound goes into something and it bounces off, it shows you an image, it's echogenic, right? If we see something in the ultrasound that's very white in appearance, we say that it's hyperechoic. An example of something that's hyperechoic would be something like bone that's solid. So when the sound goes down off into that bone, it stops and comes back faster, and it shows a wider image. A solid organ will show up as hypoechoic. Something, an example of a hollow organ would be something like a bladder, or a soft organ like a gallbladder, right? Those are hypoechoic because the sound goes through it a lot easier. A solid organ is primarily made up of tissue, so it would be somewhat hypoechoic because of the intrinsic water content. So any fluid or blood that you see, it has no echogenicity, so that would be anechoic, right? It means it gives no color. Because the sound goes right through that blood, you would see the blood in the image as being dark or having nothing there, just an empty space, right? In the presence of blood. But we'll get into that later when we do several types of other exams. But for now, let's just stick with the cardiac exams, right? Okay, so echogenicity, hyperechoic, hypoechoic, you're now well versed in how the ultrasound terms are used. So let's begin with how to get a good image, right? There's 4 tips in getting a good image. The first of them is gel. Use lots of ultrasound gel. There's no such thing as using too much gel. You can use a lot, and then this transducer will get unplugged, and we'll talk about troubleshooting that later. Number 2, press hard. Think of the probe as a flashlight, and the harder you press, the more light you're going to shine into the patient's cavity, the better image you're going to get overall. For the most part, all of our patients are going to be unresponsive, right? They're not going to give us any kind of response because they're in cardiac arrest. But a good rule of thumb when you're doing an ultrasound is press until they say ouch, right? They're not conscious, so we're not going to talk about that. All right, 3, move the probe in large circles, in large motions while you're scanning to find the target you're looking for. Then use smaller movements when you do find your target. You can also try fanning the transducer as well, like wagging the tail of a dog. They actually call that wagging the transducer. And 4, stop. If you continue to scan and you have trouble after about 20 to 30 seconds, consider taking a break, repositioning, and starting all over again. Sometimes that really helps in finding what it is that you're looking for. Now you're ready to do a scan. You press your cardiac icon, your transducer is plugged in, you hit the screen that you're in now, you have to take an image. So let's talk about what you're seeing on the screen itself. So when we go to the main screen, we see some numbers on the side. Those are your depth numbers, and each scan has predetermined depth, which is standard, which is the standard for that exam. The standard depth for the cardiac exam is 16 centimeters. But if you feel you need to go deeper because your patient is larger, just adjust your depth. It's going to be the bottom left of your screen. Just use your fingers to adjust the depth. The next adjustment next to that is going to be your gain control. Your gain control will make your image lighter or darker. And feel free to play around with that until you see the image that you're comfortable with. And to adjust that, just up and down until you see that image come up, right? Once you get the image you're looking for, now you have the choice of taking a still picture or taking a short video. If you want to take a picture, just simply press that blue snowflake icon in the center of your screen, and that takes a picture. Once you take it, it goes into the yellow position there, and that screen freezes. You have to hit that icon again in order for it to turn blue, so now you're back to the scanning mode again. right? Now you're back to scanning. If you want to take a video, then hit the icon that looks like a little movie camera at the bottom right corner of the screen. And once you hit that, it takes a sample video that lasts anywhere from 10 to 12 seconds. So when you hit the video camera icon, make sure you have the image you like and you don't move around too much because you want to keep that image where it wants to be. Taking exams, let's start off with the PLAX exam or the Parasternal long axis exam, right? To start off with, make sure that your probe placement is where it's supposed to be. If you think of a V2 placement where you're doing your 12 lead, the most important thing to remember is that your probe marker is towards the patient's right shoulder. Otherwise, you'll get an image that makes no sense to you, or you won't know what it is that you're looking at. And you're going to be doing this at the level of the fourth intercostal space. If your probe placement is correct, you'll see the left ventricle, left atrium, the aorta, and the mitral valve. I'll go ahead and put an image on the screen now so you can see what it is that I'm talking about. And I know that at first it can be confusing to know what it is you're looking at, so I'll put another image up on the screen. And this one has arrows pointing at those four structures, or those structures that I had aforementioned. All right, so hopefully you get a better idea of what it is that you're looking for. Now, if we put that image into motion, it would look something like this. You'll notice on the bottom of the screen around the center, right? You can clearly see that the mitral valve is flapping. This is a good wide flapping of the mitral valve. It's known as EPSS, or endpoint septal separation. And it shows the mitral valve slapping the septum of the heart. And that's a very good sign that the heart is very strong and working how it's supposed to. If you see a mitral valve that's barely opening, barely slapping that septum, that's a trouble. That's a heart that's failing, and that patient's going to be in trouble. So just be aware of that. So the next exam we're going to be going over, my personal favorite, because it's the easiest one in my opinion, and the people that I've showed how to do the exams, they seem to like this one as well. This is called the Subxiphoid exam. In the exam, you need to find the point at which the ribs come together at the bottom of the sternum, right? And then find the xiphoid process and go just below it, hence the name Subxiphoid. And your transducer, it's not going to be at a 90 degree to the patient, but it's going to be flat, like a beyond a 45, and you're going to go under the xiphoid to really shine the light on those, right? Point the probe marker towards the patient's left side at the 3 o'clock position, and point the probe itself slightly to the patient's left shoulder. The probe should almost be at a 90 degree angle to the probe marker should not be at a 90 degree angle, but it should be down closest to the patient's abdomen to get that best image that you want, right? With this exam, you'll notice that the right ventricle will always be on the top and will show up smaller than the left ventricle. And I'll put an image up on the screen so you can see what it is that I'm talking about. And remember I mentioned earlier, what's closest to the probe will show up at the top of the screen. Think of the underlying anatomy in this exam and the structures that are closest to the probe, right? Specifically this organ that runs along here, the liver, right? That's why you see the liver at the top of the screen, because it's what's closest to the probe marker. Just below that, you'll see the right ventricle, right atrium. Below that, we see the left atrium and the left ventricle. And if we put a real scan, it will look something like this. If we were to put this image in motion, it would look something like this. All right, we did our scans, we know all the lingo, we know how to take a picture, and we know how to take a video. So now, how do we save this image and then send it off so that it can be reviewed later by the EMS chief? All right, well, first let's review how we look at the video, right? Once you take the video you like and you're comfortable with it, you hit the 3 icons at the top. Once you get that drop-down menu and it says, you're gonna wanna hit the option that says Review Exam. You then hit Review Exam, and then the videos you just took will pop up. If you decide the ones that you took aren't the ones you want, that aren't good enough, you wanna take another video, simply go up to the menu button or the 3-line menu, right? And you'll get list of options, go to current exam. That'll take you back to the scanning page. Now you're ready to scan again and take another scan. You could either take a picture or hit the video. Okay, so you took the image you're comfortable with it now. Now you're done with the call and you need to edit the patient information and save the video so it can be emailed, right? As long as you don't hit end exam at the top right, you'll keep the current exam open. So we're gonna go again and hit the menu icon, right, at the top left, and you're gonna get that drop-down menu. Once you see that drop-down menu, you're gonna hit the edit patient info icon. Then you're gonna get that screen come up. From there, you're gonna go to the quick ID icon and enter the run number associated with the call. When you're done there, just go a couple spaces below and you can enter the patient's birth date. Don't put the patient's name. This goes to an unsecure server, and for HIPAA purposes, we're gonna leave the patient's name out of it. So once you enter the date of birth and the run number, hit the icon at the top right where it says save and return. Now you're going back to this here, right? Now, you're ready to email whenever it is you're ready to email. And also now you have the file that has been saved. You can officially hit end exam. Once you hit end exam, just be aware you can no longer add or edit anything to that exam. So hit end exam at the top right. And that'll take you to another page that asks you if you want to end it. Just hit yes. So now we need to send that exam that you just saved. In order to send that exam, hit the menu tab at the top left again and look for the saved exams option. And it's about halfway down. You hit that icon, and now you have that email page to email this, right? You look for the scan that you just did, that you just saved, find it, tap on it. Once you have it, you're gonna hit the button that says export exam, and you're gonna hit email. It's the middle one. It's gonna give you a notice that if you wanna do it, yes, hit continue. Now it's compressing the file and getting it ready to send off as an email form. All right, so when it's done compressing, it takes you to the email page. At the top where it says to your recipients, you're gonna type in waylandl@asterilfire.org. And oftentimes, if you just start typing, right, your keypad comes off when you hit the 2. I just hit the W and her name was the first one that popped up. We're gonna be saying this to Wayland Laura. Tap on her name and the space right underneath it, where it says Lumify export, you're gonna put the run number again. And then when you're done with that, the arrow at the top left, the blue arrow, you're gonna hit that, and now it sends it off. Your exam is now sent, they have it, it's ready to go. So now, this is the page that the video you just sent is on. To go back and do another scan because you're on another call, simply hit the menu icon. You're going to get a drop-down menu and hit cardiac. This takes you to this page here. Make sure your cardiac icon is highlighted in blue. Once it's highlighted in blue, hit the scan button again. Now it takes you to the scan page and you're ready to do another scan. Be aware sometimes the blue snowflake might be highlighted in yellow. That means that the screen is frozen. So go ahead and hit that to make sure that it's in the blue record position. Now you're ready to do a scan and everything just repeats itself all over again. Okay, so now let's look at a couple more scans and I'll talk you through what it is that we're actually seeing, and hopefully you get a better idea of how to interpret a scan to recognize the structures that we're looking at. Okay, the first video we're going to show here is the asystole. You can see that the right ventricle or left ventricle are open, anechoic, no blood, and the mitral valve over on the right stays open, which denotes no blood flow. This is true asystole. All right, this second video here is going to be asystole as well. As you can see, the right ventricle on the top, left ventricle on the bottom. There's no organized rhythm. What you see is a person taking the scan, moving the transducer, changing their angle of view. And along the bottom of the heart, there's no organized rhythm, whether the heart meets the chest wall. There's no mitral valve flapping. This is a dead heart. Okay, in the third video here, it is a true PEA. It's showing electrical impulses on the monitor, but you can see the right ventricle and the left ventricle not filling up with blood, and the mitral valve over where the arrow is just staying continuously open. And along the floor of the heart, the bottom of the heart, there's no organized pumping or anything like that. This is, in essence, a true PEA. Nothing going on here. All right, on this video here, this is called a pseudo PEA. It is showing electrical activity on the monitor, but no pulse being produced. You can clearly see that mitral valve where the arrow is being flapped up against the septum, and up at the top, the right ventricle filling up with blood and pumping the blood out. This is absolutely an organized rhythm. Had they not done a ultrasound on this, they probably would have called this patient, even though the patient very much had a viable heart. This is very much an organized rhythm. So this is an example of why we do ultrasound in the field, to catch pseudo PEAs. Okay guys, and for this last video, this is a pseudo PEA as well. They did an ultrasound. A patient was producing an electrical impulse, but no palpable pulse. But you can clearly see where I put the red arrow that mitral valve is flapping in an organized rhythm. And up at the top, that right ventricle is filling with blood. Very much an organized rhythm. Had they not done an ultrasound on this patient, or one was not available, they probably would have called him after 20 minutes just to bring home the importance of doing ultrasound in the pre-hospital setting. Okay guys, I know that was a huge amount of information to digest, but trust me, the more you do these things, the more you do these exams, the more proficient you're gonna be at them. If you find yourself, you're bored at the station, go ahead and take this out of the truck and do a scan on yourself. Maybe ask one of the guys if you could do a scan on them, but just keep doing them, right? And also remember, you have a huge platform on how to be more proficient and how to review stuff. YouTube, right? There's endless amount of videos on there, and it's amazing how much you can pull away just from watching all these videos, right? There's everything on there you can possibly imagine. So that's it guys, thanks for watching. I hope you were able to pull something away from this and hopefully use it on your next cardiac exam. I know it took up a bunch of your time, but thanks for being so patient and watching the video. Trust me when I tell you, it will benefit you if you just do this all the time. So thanks for watching guys, until next time, we'll see you.